Everyone, welcome back to the workshop. And I've been feeling like my office at work needs a little bit of a refresh. So I thought I want to make a few projects, creating some new decorations for it. And so today we're going to be doing that using some patent drawings. Here in the US, at least, generally patent applications, you provide some artwork to help describe what it is you're trying to patent. And that is generally considered okay to use as far as artwork and creating things. I don't know the exact definition of it, whether it's public domain or not, but it's generally considered okay to use that for art and creation of that. So I'm going to show you how to find some of that. And we're going to use a couple new materials to my shop. Well, one new material and a new type of some we've used in the past. Got some material in from True Flat. It's their laser plywood. They have a variety of veneers with kind of a real light MDF core on it. So it looks like some cool stuff, as well as some more scratch acrylic from Great Carve. They sent some other colors over, and I'm going to use that to create some office decor. I'll show you some tips and tricks in using Lightburn to kind of manipulate the artwork that we're going to pull down from the patent site and hopefully make something cool. So if that sounds interesting to you, you want to find out more, stay tuned. I'm going to jump right into it.
Okay, so I'm going to do the design work from the comfort of my office. It's just easier to work in here on longer setups. But we're going to be searching for some patent art. It's generally considered okay to use patent art for, kind of like artistic things. And you are allegedly able to sell these as well. You just can't, create the actual product off of them, but they are kind of considered public domain. So we're going to go ahead and jump into a site to be able to search for that. And I am going to go ahead and use lovely Google. So if you go to patents.google.com, it brings up a special search that's just going to search through patents. And it's actually supposedly from around the world, not just the US. Now, this is a little bit tricky. You're going to need to kind of play around with the terminology to figure out what you're trying to find. Now, what I want to make is kind of a blueprint drawing of the Wright Flyer from Orville and Wilbur Wright. My love of aviation, figured that'd be something kind of fun. So if I search for Wright Flyer, it actually isn't necessarily going to come up. You're seeing it's trying to search for certain things. And if I click on Wright Flyer, I'm getting a lot of stuff, but it's not necessarily what I'm looking for. So you kind of really need to know the name of the object, or you can search by the people who applied for the patent. So we know that. So let's search for Wilbur Wright, and it is kind of seeing these two inventor. So let's go with that. And let's see if we find it. Hang glider. No, let's go back. Did I spell his name right? Let's try Orville. Orville Wright. Let's see here. Aha, here we go. Flying machine. And so this is what they actually called it when they patented it. So I'm going to click on this, and this will bring up kind of some of the basic information of the patent. If you want to dig into, the description, all that interesting information, what we're looking for is the artwork, which happens to be right up top here. So we can open this up, and I'm actually going to pop this into a new one. And there is this plus symbol, so we want to zoom in on that because that will give us the largest size photo. And so this is basically just a scan of the original documentation that was submitted for the patent. And so I am going to simply right click, and we're going to save image as. I've already actually gone ahead and downloaded these ahead of time. So there's the three. So as you see, we do have three different images here. I can bring this one up. You got kind of a top view. This is kind of a bit of a 3/4 view. And then they also have a detailed view of kind of the side view. And some key information that they're trying to patent. So this is the artwork I want to play with. So I've downloaded them all. At this point, we are going to go ahead and jump over into Lightburn and start working with them. All right, so I'm in Lightburn. I'm going to just be working with the artwork. When I actually need to set up the cut settings and whatnot, we'll do that out in the shop. All right, so let's go ahead and import the first photo here. We're going to grab page 1. Now there's a couple things I'm going to want off this. So I'm actually going to make a copy of this because we're going to be applying masks to grab the artwork that we want versus what we don't want. Because I'm not worried about all of this jazz. I'm actually going to create that as part of the frame, but we'll manually create it. So I'm mostly worried about the artwork, but I also want to grab the inventors with their signatures because that's kind of a cool thing to add on there as well. So let's start with this one. Now, if you're not familiar with, you can actually kind of crop an image using a mask, and you can use any sort of shape. You can create one from a line tool. It can be a circle, square, any of these. This one, we should just be able to grab a square, and I am going to make sure I grab all of it as such. Move that to the tool layer, and now I am going to use our selection tool, highlight both of them, right click, and go to apply mask to image. Now that is going to just temporarily put that mask on there. But if I were to say move this around, you'll notice that it's actually grabbing anything that I move behind there. So we want to make sure that that is in there. And when we're happy with it, we can flatten image mask. And now it is just that little piece. So we've got that section set ready. I'm just going to set this aside. Now for this one, I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees and we're going to zoom in. Now this one I can't necessarily use a box tool on because I don't want to grab this, but I do want some of the side detail. So we're just going to start with our line tool. I'm going to come up here into this corner and I'm just going to start drawing around the extents of the artwork to mask off anything we don't want. I'm trying to stay away from all these extra little dots because those can show up in the engraving as well. If you really want to spend some time, you can clean this up quite a bit, but I think for the most part, by excluding the bulk of this stuff, we'll be okay. So I'm just going around, trying to put my lines in as close to the artwork without cutting off anything I don't want. I don't know that we need figure one, so we'll just come back over to this end and we'll close that. So now we have that. Again, if we select both items, right click, apply mask to image, we've got just that airplane. We'll go ahead and flatten image mask. Now we have just that part of the airplane, and we can continue on. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing to the other two pieces of artwork, and then we'll jump back in and start setting up our layout. All right, so I've got everything kind of masked off so we can play around with our design. And so what I'm wanting to do with this is just kind of make a small kind of photo frame size thing. And since these are, I mean, they're 7x5, 6x5, 7x3. The material I'm working with has kind of a limitation of about 12 inches in one direction. So I'm actually going to size these down to kind of your typical 5x7 photographs. So I think what I want to do is maybe bring these top and bottom. I don't want them to overlap, but we don't need them to be too far apart. Yeah. Actually, I'm going to bring these two and I'm going to make sure they're centered that way. That looks good. So I'm going to go ahead and group those. And now this one, I think maybe if we put it off to the side, like so, that might be all right. So once again, I'm going to select both of those and we will center that way. That way it'll hopefully look fairly even. All right, so I'm going to group those up again, and now I'm going to take this and I want to make this, we're going to go no more than 5 tall or 7 wide. So I'm going to start with the width. We'll take that to 7, and actually I'm going to go 6 3/4. There we go. So that should do all right. That'll be okay for our artwork. All right, so we've got that. Now I'm going to be putting this in the frame. And so I'm going to start with a box. We're going to change that. So the box, again, 7, 5. Now we can lock that. And let's move this onto a black layer because we're going to be in a cut. Did I accidentally make another box? I don't know that I did or not. Yes, I did. Let's get that out of there. Huh. All right, so we've got our box. Now I'm going to need a border. So I'm going to use the offset tool. We want to go outward, corner, and our distance is going to be a little bit of, that looks about right. Let's 1.5. Yeah, well, yeah. We'll start with that. So hopefully that's our frame. I'm going to go ahead and group those. So this is going to be cut out of some of the wooden material. And now we can go ahead and drop these in here. All right, so we've got our artwork kind of centered in our frame. Gonna just try to make sure that looks decent. You don't want anything touching the borders. But yeah, I think that's okay. All right, so now what I want to do is I want to dress up the frame a little bit. We're going to add some engravings, and that's why I grabbed this for one thing, because I think this would be kind of cool. I'm going to maybe put this right in the bottom here. So we're going to go ahead and we want to center that with this. So again, we're going to do that. That bumps it over there. And for the top, I want to put some of the basic information on here. So here's where we're going to grab our text tool. And I want to change, well, let's just type this out. So what I'm thinking is United States, oops, got to type it right. All right, so United States Patent Office. Put this on a blue layer, and we're going to want to scale that down a bit. It doesn't need to be too obnoxious. Probably going to choose a different font as well. Let's boom down that a little bit more. Okay, so again, I'm going to center that. So I'm clicking on the item. The first item is the one I want to move in alignment with the second item. So click on the item, that one, to center it on the second one you click on. There you go. All right, so I actually want to change the font. So let's move this off to the side a little bit so we can kind of see it. And I'm looking for a bit of a type font. And I think I have one. But the one I'm looking for, that I think I kind of like, is, here we go. It's a little bit of an official looking font. So we're going to go with that. All right, so let's add some more information to this. Again, we're going to take this one. We're going to hold shift on that, and then we want to center it there. And I might just tap that up. There we go, just a little bit. And I'm then going to group, I'm going to group those two. Then I want to take that one to this one, same thing, center it. And I'm going to bump that up just a little bit with the arrow key and shift. That looks good. Let's group that. Now, this one, I want to left justify, so we're going to use that. It's going to bring it up to that edge. We'll group those, and then this one I want to right justify over there. So we'll group those. There we go. I think that looks okay. Gonna maybe just stretch it just a little bit more. It can take up a little more space. Doesn't need to be quite that small. And then we're gonna go ahead and recenter that on that one. So I think that looks okay. I have the information up there. We have their names and signatures down here. I could try tracing that, but I just don't think it's going to come up very well. So we're going to hopefully, just as an image, that's going to look okay. And then on this, we're actually going to engrave on a panel that's going to be inside this. So this frame is going to be separate from this inner piece. Let me just show that. So let's make sure, okay, I want to make sure all this is grouped. There we go. And so that's one piece. Now this is actually going to be on a second piece that we're going to put behind it. So I'm going to need another. All right, unlock that. Now this needs to be bigger than this to be inset. So I want about a 1/4 inch overlap. So with that, this was 5x7. So this one is going to need to be a width of 7.5 and a height of 5.5. There we go. And now we're going to take, I keep forgetting, I got the wrong tools there. All right, let's just make sure we didn't put any artifacts there. Okay. We're going to take these two items and we are going to center them that way. And then we're going to group them. So now what will happen is this will basically sit behind it that way. And you see this overlap will be on the back side. That will hold it in. And then we're also then going to need to take another frame. We're going to need to cut this outer panel to make another frame for that. So, easier way to do this is Control-C, Control-V to paste, and then I can hopefully ungroup everything. And what I want, I'm going to ungroup that. What I want is this and this. We're going to group that up and get rid of this. All right. So these should be the 3 pieces we need. We're going to have this cut out of some scratch acrylic. It's going to be blue and it's going to reveal white. So I'm hoping that comes out okay, looking kind of like an actual blueprint. This will be made some of our true flat material. So that will, we'll pick one of the colors of the types of wood there and get the engraving in that. And then this can just be some filler material for the back. And we'll glue that onto the back of this to hold it as a frame for this. I'm probably still going to need to figure out some sort of hold down mechanism on the back. So that's kind of our basic design work on this. At this point, I'm going to jump out to the shop. We're going to need to make sure we've got some material tests for the various materials we're using, and then we'll get to cutting this out and putting it together. So I'll see you out in the shop.
I've mentioned before on many videos, material tests are very important. So we're running this on the Omtech Maker 50 watt CO2. I'm using that because of the scratch acrylic is going to be more consistent. You can run these materials on diode lasers, but when you get into the scratch acrylic, the colors are going to kind of give you kind of differentiating settings. So here's what I came up with this one. So here is the true flat plywood, and this I was blasting through 45 to 55% power at 17 millimeters a second. So I'm probably going to back that off to about 15 or 16 to be able to run that. Just make sure that we're not going to run into any issues with varying power or spots. And then we've got a pretty good gradient. I ran it from 10 to 60% power on the engrave, and then from 200 to 500. That's going to vary based on whether we're using the vector for a solid color or for an image. But I'm probably going to land around the 250 millimeters a second range and somewhere from 30 to 40% power, although in an image I would bump that from 10 to 50 just to get the full range if we were doing colors. But on most of these, it's black and white scan, it's going to be fine. And then I took a piece of material out of the scratch acrylic that I don't use a whole lot. This is, it's a yellow base with a black top, and ran some tests on this. This is going to be fairly consistent even with the different colors. With the CO2, I might need to back it off a little bit. Black's going to burn a little bit better than other colors. But then we have the yellow underneath. So I started out doing some cut tests there, and you see on these it was blasting through right away at the top, so I cut them short. I didn't want to spend the time cutting those out. Ended up with a bit of a gradient over here, and so this is where I think I maxed out at 50 millimeters a second, and it was just barely getting through at 100% power. So I'm going to back this off probably to about 44, 45 is where it's coming through, even at 45 all the way up to 60% power. And then the engrave was interesting, as you can hopefully see here. Even at 15% power, we were getting through that top layer anywhere from 200 or 300 on up to 500. But in these higher speeds, I got a little bit of kind of the vaporization, the dust was getting in there. And so I'm going to run it lower. I'm probably going to stick in that 15% range and go somewhere probably between 400 to 500 to do the engravings. So that just seems to be cleaner, seems to be giving us a good engrave, and that will be for the blueprint side. So let's jump over to the computer. We'll get all our settings set up, and then we'll get all these parts cut out on the laser. All right, so let's take a look at the setup. I've pulled it open on the shop computer here, and I've kind of gone ahead and made our settings. So again, here is the outer frame. We've got our fill engraving here at the top. We've got that set to 250 speed and 35 power based off our engrave test on that true flat material. And then we've got our image here. This is the engravings of the signatures and such. Again, 250 and maxed out at 55 because we're going for the gradient here. This is more of an image type engraving. So we'll see that. I'm breaking these out into these different images just that way if we need to rerun one, we can do that. And then of course our outline cuts. Went ahead, just bumped it down to 16 millimeters a second and 50% power. That should get everything cut out. Now, of course, we will then have to kind of duplicate this on here. I'm not sure I'm going to use the true flat material. Might just use some Baltic birch plywood for that one. It's cheaper and it's just a backer material. And then, of course, we have our scratch acrylic. So went ahead and set up our line, our cut, and actually that's going to need to be moved down. So that is our 45 millimeters a second and 50% power. But then our image engravings for this one, we've got set up there at that 500 millimeters a second, and went ahead and went with 20% power. It's kind of halfway between those first two boxes we had. So those are the settings we have. So now I'm going to drop some material into the laser. So let's jump over there. We'll get it squared up, and we'll run the job. All right, for assembly, we're going to get everything set up, but first I got to clean up this true flat plywood. So a little bit of isopropyl alcohol. We're going to get just a bit on a rag, and the nice thing is that this will clean up very easily. So you just got to kind of rub that down, and the pre-finished nature of this means it's not going to soak into the wood, but it's going to clean up any of the scorch marks on engravings or cut lines. So just keep working away around and get that cleaned up, and when you're all done, it should look very nice and clean. You won't have to sand it out, and you'll have a nice completed surface. So there we see that it's looking nice and crisp without any scorch marks on it. All right, so the scratch acrylic, I'm not going to use alcohol on that. I'm going to use a little bit of Windex, again, just spraying that on a rag, just to kind of clean up some of the edging and get the dust off the center part. Didn't take too much to do that, but that is looking nice and crisp as well. So the glue we're going to use, a couple of things. We're using Titebond and then a little CA and accelerator. I'm going to use the Titebond to do the bulk of the holding, but I'm also using this piece of tape as a bit of a hinge. It's going to allow me to kind of get this lined up so that when I do put the glue down, I don't have to worry about fussing with the alignment. So we just kind of wrap that around each side, can hinge and bring it back in alignment. So I'm going to leave some spaces around with the white glue. The spaces I'm going to use for the CA, just kind of spreading that white glue out a little bit so I don't get too much squeeze out, and then just dropping some CA in the corners and the spaces. This is going to act as a clamp while the white glue dries. So just kind of hold that in place for a little bit to let that cure up, and go ahead and clean up any of the squeeze out around the frame.
Just make sure that everything's going to sit in nicely. So now I'm going to pull that back, the tape. We're going to reuse it for the next layer. And we're going to make sure that's in the right orientation, place our artwork in there. And then I'm using a piece of MDF for the backer. So I'm going to, once again, get that aligned up, get that tape hinge back down, and rinse and repeat. We're going to go ahead and put the white glue around, leaving spaces for the CA glue to act as clamps. Use a little kicker on the back piece, get that all lined up and pressed in place, and then let that cure. This glue does dry clear, but I want to take care of any squeeze out, and then we can just go ahead and take off the tape hinge, and we're all done.
All right, and here we have it, the finished piece. I think it came out pretty well. Really happy with the true flat plywood. This kind of pre-finished veneer surface makes it really easy to clean up. You don't need to sand, just a little bit of alcohol cleans up any of the scorch marks on the engraving, and the cut leaves it very clean, crisp engraved. So very happy with that. Excited to use this material in some future projects. And the blue scratch acrylic, I think, has a really nice effect looking at blueprints. The CO2 laser did a great job of engraving it. I did need to do that second pass. So even though we did a material test, I'd probably need to dial in a little bit more to get a consistent cut. But overall, very happy with both materials. And I think this is cool. I'm just going to decide how to display this. I can either make a little plate or photo stand for this and set it on my desk, or I may just use some command strips and stick it on the wall. But anyway, hopefully this was kind of fun for you to check out, gave you some ideas to maybe do some searching for patent art, maybe something that you want to create, something that's interesting to you, or something that maybe you can work into something to sell. So I'll try to leave links down below to the various tools that I used, the patent site, the Google search, as well as things like the Omtech laser and all these materials. Some of those will be affiliate links. They do go to help out and support this channel, so I always appreciate you using those. But as always, just happy to give you some good information and hopefully inspire you. If you like this video, hit that like button. If you've got any questions or comments, go ahead and leave those down below. I do a lot of videos like this where they're project videos. I do some reviews. I did actually do a review on the Omtech laser, so you might want to check that out if you're interested in jumping into maybe a little bit bigger machine from a diode, or possibly looking at your first machine. This is a decent starter machine in either of those realms. I also do a live stream on Sunday nights with my friend David over at the Clack Shack. We answer questions live. We talk about what's going on in our shop. Just kind of hang out for a couple hours on Sunday nights, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Central Time. And it's a good show, great way to interact with us, get your questions answers. We've fixed lasers on the show, so love to connect with you more that way. If you really like what you saw here, want to make sure you see what I'm doing in the future, hit that subscribe button. So appreciate those who have watched to the end. You're the real troopers here. And so I hope to be back soon with another project or machine or tip, trick, software. We'll see you in the future. But in the meantime, I hope you can get out into your workshop and make something too. We'll catch you next time.